Hey, how's it going, guys? This is Benjamin Mena with the next episode of the Elite Recruiter podcast. Today, I am actually excited about welcoming Aaron Opalewski onto the podcast. He has had over $150 million in sales in the staffing industry, and definitely excited to share his story with you guys. So, Aaron, here you go.
Hey Ben, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be on and have become a fan of the podcast. As we started talking on social, one of the things that I wanted to do, like when someone asked me to come on, is I want to learn a little bit about them. And like, well, let me go check out his episodes, and end up listening to all of them, and
Thank you.
have some stuff in common, and I really enjoyed it and thought you had some people on that had, said some really insightful stuff. So I'm a fan and, grateful that you're having me on today. So thank you.
So, want to kind of like jump into your background, and if you want to go laugh, like I'm pretty sure we both started our recruiting careers at the same organization.
Yeah, it looks like we both started at Aerotech. Yes.
Okay. How'd you fall into recruiting? Was it like, hey, did you want to be a recruiter, or just did you end up like most people, just
Yeah,
rolling into it?
you use the term fall in, and what a lot of people do within recruiting, right? It's not something that I didn't grow up knowing I wanted to be a recruiter. Frankly, I didn't know what the heck I wanted to do for a long period of time. And, I kind of got interested in like entrepreneurship and sales based businesses before I found out about recruiting. I had like a event rental company for a couple summers.
Oh, that's awesome.
That was kind of cool to do. It was hard work. So I was used to working a lot of hours. Would shop after working 20-hour days. And so that was fun at 18, 19, that was fine. And was trying to pay for college and got into personal training. And, that was something where I could go to school, set my own schedule, and wasn't, making an hourly amount of money, right? I was getting paid somewhat based off performance, how many sessions I'm doing, et cetera. And that's what ultimately led me to recruiting. I was training someone within the industry. They were a director at Aerotech out of Michigan here. And as I got to know that person, I didn't really know they were recruiting me at the moment, but they started asking me about, some of my goals and what I wanted to do in life and all this kind of stuff. And, at that age, you think you have it figured out. I knew I wanted to go into business, and I really enjoyed training, but I didn't want to do it forever. Which is why I was going to school. I figured I'd have to wait till I was done with school to get like a professional job, right? But so we got to know each other more. He offered me an interview, and I knew absolutely nothing about recruiting at the moment, but I had developed a little bit of a relationship with that person. Had some trust built up in them, and just kind of looked at the career that they had built for themselves. And I was, I was interested, right? I thought it looked great. And, it turned out that initial relationship led to getting a job there. It helped me get a foot in the door with an interview. I started before, at that time, I think they're doing it differently now. I don't really know, but at that time I started before I had a degree. Most people, at least in my office, had a 4-year degree. And so I definitely felt like I didn't want to let that person down. I had something to prove. I'm already a competitive person. And, when I started in recruiting, took a pay cut from what I was doing. So I was like, man, it was a jump at the time, but I was like, man, I can't let this person down that's sticking their neck out for me. And here I am, 13 and a half years later, still doing recruiting.
I've told so many people over the years that Aerotech is, an incredible place as a company, and also an incredible training ground too. What's your thoughts on some of those early days, like learning the recruiting business?
I absolutely love my time at Aerotech. When people ask me this question or, how'd you get into business for yourself or whatever, I had no plans of ever leaving Aerotech. As I got into the mix of working there, I told myself, and I probably told other people too, like, I'm going to be the CEO of this place. And, God had different plans. But that was my intention. And I absolutely loved my time there. I learned so much. I'm very grateful to all of the people that mentored me, while I was there. I was only there for about 18 months. But I just learned a ton, extremely grateful for that time. And, while I was there, I had no intentions of ever leaving, or I wasn't like planning to do my own thing. That just kind of all fell into place as things happened with Aerotech. And I left in 2009.
Okay.
They'd done a pretty big layoff, and I think they consolidated 4 or 5 offices. But I mean, it was an impactful day in my life. They brought in everybody from these offices, and they laid off like over 100 people in a day. And I'm sure
Wow.
it's tough for all the people that had to make those decisions. And I stayed, but they had demoted me. I'd only been in sales like 6 months, and I got demoted back to recruiting. And I was not happy about that at the time. And I look at it differently now. But I won't use the Aerotech terminology, but you're familiar with production is number one, and or a big part of it, right? And everyone can see the numbers. And my production was good. I think I had 2 new accounts the week that I got demoted, and I'm like, man, like I'm like going through the report. Why am I getting demoted when I'm ahead of in commissions of I'm rattling off people? So
Hmm.
sure I wasn't the easiest person to talk to about that, because that was hard for me to take. But things don't happen to you; they happen for you. And ultimately, it's even though I was frustrated at the time, it turned out to be a really good thing. And I think the person that had to make those decisions on consolidating, you consolidate 4 offices, they demoted a bunch of directors, and I think that person did the best they could in like a 60-day time frame of that happening. I'm like, dude, you kind of just got to go with who you know. There's no way you can get to know 150 to 200 people in a 60-day window. And so I have a total different perspective on that than I did.
So going from there, do you want to jump into your move into S&A solutions, or just jump into or kind of segue into your current company now, Spark Talent Acquisition?
Yeah, I mean, my first company, after we had left Aerotech, we started doing industrial staffing,
Okay.
and learned a lot, from it. It was a great experience too. Learned that there's a big difference between working for a big firm and working for yourself. It's there's some benefits, but I think it took us 3-4 months to even get any business going. And it didn't help that we opened up in like May of 2009, when
I
like
was gonna
no one.
say, like, that's like the toughest time. It was like the sky was falling every direction.
Yeah, so that I'm grateful for that experience as well. Ultimately decided that I wanted to go out and start something different, which a lot of people probably thought I was crazy for, because that business was doing well. It's a good business. Like, they're very good at the niche of industrial staffing, and it was a good thing. But when you're 50-50 owners with someone and just want to do things different ways, it's good to have healthy dialogue and conflict and stuff like that. But when you have two 50-50 partners that want to do things different ways, it's probably not going to work out. And it doesn't mean that each of those companies or people can't be successful or right. It's just you have different aspirations or way you want to do things. So we started Spark in 2013 with 5 of us. And, it was interesting starting a business, because we didn't start with 0 people on our payroll or anything. We had a team of 5 compared to
Okay.
the company I had started. There was just the founders. And then we brought over, some people, and within that, like, that were running on payroll each week. And so within that, there was new challenges, more overhead, right out of the gate. And the first quarter, like getting going, like it was the first time in staffing that I had ever like lost money outside of like our first 6 months when we started. And it was a little scary, but you know, you rely on the fundamentals of what you do. And like we stuck to it and we turned around and we grew from our first payroll to the end of the year. We've grown 800% by the end of the first year.
Oh, that's phenomenal. So you guys said you started with 5 people. Like, how big are you guys now? And that's just what, 5, 6 years ago?
Yeah, so we've had up to 51 team members internally. We employ a couple thousand each year. You know, our big objective this year is to get to the 3,000 mark. That
Okay.
we like to associate that. We call it creating opportunities. Like, I mean, what we do, we place people at all different levels, right? But as I'm sure you've been in the industry long enough, you might place someone and now you hear that they're running their own business or running a division or a company, or like, you know, you see that kind of, after you've been doing it for a while, you get to see the long-term impact that you can make, that I think first year, second year recruiter you don't fully understand that, right? And so, you know, we're focused on putting people in better situations than they're currently in. That means different things for different people. But we look at each job that, you know, we put someone into as an opportunity created. So
Kind of a,
this year
want
is
to
to do
jump into like
3,000.
this year's to do 3,000.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Question for you. Last year, like, how did you guys handle the craziness of COVID-19 over the last year?
It was, you know, it's a testament to our team. We have a great team. We have a great operational like core team that isn't focused on production based recruiting or selling, right? And we were able to, I mean, at the time, I think we had 8 office locations across the country,
Okay.
offices, and we've cut that down to 4 over the last year, which I like the way our ops team set up those offices because we had negotiated some good stuff within our leases. But within a week time frame, we went from doing everything physically on site to we turned everything on digitally. Like, and we had it all set up within a week time frame. And
That's incredible.
yeah, and honestly, like without like our operations team who push me, you know, they're pushing me the 2 years before that to set some things up, and we invested a good amount of money in things that like I probably didn't hold as much value in at the time. But because they pushed, you know, me on that, we ultimately did that. We were set up, like it was still hard work, but within a 2-day span, we completely moved from all physical meetings, stand-up meetings, which I'm sure you're familiar with, to doing everything digital. All of the team member meetings were together instead of apart. All the candidates from every state across the country, it was all, you know, we could see everything much better. And we've stuck with that since. So we completely changed how we do meetings, how we communicate with each other within a week. And we continue to make adjustments since, right? But just couldn't be more impressed with how our team pulled that off and then worked together over, you know, the first few months of COVID, because April and May were, you didn't know exactly. April, you didn't know what was going to happen, and you know, our team stuck with it. We didn't lay anybody off, which, you know, hit our bottom,
Awesome.
you know, right out of the gate relatively quick, because a lot of people got laid off that were on site, you know, at clients, but we didn't lay off anyone internally. That's not a good mix when you put those two together. And but you know, it's just a testament to our team hanging in and, you know, preparing for some of this stuff, and still to this day, like we're implementing, like I just got off our Zoom meeting this morning. We do that. We have some people that are in the office, some people that only work from home, some people that flex in, flex out. We have a mix going on across our offices, and yeah, that's just how we're approaching it. But it was tough, but a year later, you know, almost to the date, like operationally, we're set up better than we ever have been. And that's a testament to our team Not that there's things we're not working on. I'm a big proponent of like being around people. So it's an interesting time. I think that, if someone's not comfortable, like we're not pushing them back into the office or anything, but I also don't think you should not see anybody for a year, especially we're in a people business, right? So,
Yep.
I mean, I think it's walking a line. I'm, one of our core values is tied to leading by example. And, so I'm in the office at least a couple days a week. I'm not going to ask people to come in and then not go in myself. But I think it's important to just interact with other humans. So, I think we'll continue to push that more into this year, especially if people feel they need to get a vaccine, cool. If they don't want to get one, also cool. Like, we want you to feel comfortable. Like, it's free country. Like, let's get everyone comfortable. And hey, like we love remote work, but we'd also like you to interact with people.
Yeah.
A couple times a week or once a week. So I think that's where we're headed, is to go into some type of flex schedule. Probably very few scenarios where it's all remote, but it depends on the person.
Okay. Hey, so want to kind of jump into something else now. So $150 million of sales, that's over your entire career in the staffing industry. What are some of the things that you think that you did different that set you up for that kind of success, whether it's daily habits or, some of the minor things that you do?
Not being afraid to fail. In our industry, failure it's a huge part of the job. It's become a part of all my interviews, is talking about failure and trying to measure how much rejection someone can handle, because you get rejected a lot in recruiting. And so that starts at like a recruiting and sales level, but all the way up to how we run business units, the companies within our family of companies. Like, if you're not failing on stuff, you're not trying hard enough, and you need to have wins in there too. But we've just had a lot of things that we've tried that haven't worked. We've done a lot of things with good intentions, like through growth, that maybe we set some people up to fail at times. And I think the goal is to learn from that and then continue adapting and tweaking things to get better, right? So that's been a big part of our success, is not being so focused on never making a mistake, right? Or never doing something new. I think going up to 8 offices over there's probably like a 12-month period. I can't, it was about a year, maybe a little bit over 14 months, but we made a ton of mistakes within that. We've scaled that back and are utilizing technology more. But we picked up a lot of good things and a lot of good relationships across the country. And we have a better rhythm of how to kind of scale up these different areas than we did when we started. So a lot of that just came from like, okay, we did X, Y, and Z, and X, Y didn't work at all. Z worked. Oh, here's some other things that we're doing that we can pull into that and get this going. So that's my shortest answer I can give, is not being afraid to fail and not being focused on you get in a rhythm in recruiting and things are going well. It's easy to stop pushing yourself, and so you got to keep the pedal to the metal on that, and understand as your team gets bigger that that's a real thing for everyone, and figure out the best way to do that without burning people out
Okay.
at the same time. So and then in regards to daily habits, I'm a big proponent of that. I go through, I call them daily igniters. People call them different things, but I have 5 daily igniters that are tied to Spark Talent. That's our business that I'm the CEO of and responsible for day to day. So 5 daily igniters a day. And then I also add in 3 additional, what I call critical tasks. And I picked that up. I think it was Jay from your first podcast mentioned Priscilla, who's a mentor of mine. And I was listening to that, and it was good to hear him say that. I completely agree. Great guy to listen to. Been part of their entrepreneurial group, the Arate Syndicate, and someone that I consider like a direct mentor to me. But so picked that up from him. That's his thing, critical tasks. But so I have 5 daily igniters and then 3 critical tasks. My critical tasks are tied to, could be health, it could be one of our other businesses, it could be investments, or anything else. It could be something personal with my daughter or my wife. But so there's 8 things a day that I'm trying to accomplish. And then I always like to pray, read 10 pages of a book. I try and do cardio 5 days a week, and I work out 5 to 6 days a week. So those are my things. I'm pretty talented. I didn't start doing all that stuff. Like if someone's not doing any of that stuff, I wouldn't recommend, like, just start with something. If you don't read, listen to an audio book or something like that. I like to read, and I listen to podcasts too, but those are my things. Like, doesn't mean they're right or wrong for anybody else, but that's how I stay organized, and stay on task, right? And then if I don't complete them, I lost the day. Just that simple. I have to complete those in the day. So if I'm a new recruiter, submittals and interview, something I can control is going in, and you either do it or you don't, right? So, but I'll look at my days, and I better not have a bunch of L's in a row. I'm going to get one now and then, because I put things that are tough and should be moving the needle. But the goal is to go achieve a win one day at a time and keep stacking those.
So Rick, like maybe try to explain in 15 seconds or more, like the daily ignite, like what are those?
Those are
daily ignitions.
I mean, they're all tied to moving the business to spark talent forward. So a big one for me that I'm implementing right now, because I still do some sales. I am more tied to bringing in certain types of sales for the company. Big thing that I'm passionate about is like retainers, engagement, executive search. And so, like, as we've got bigger, there's been times where there's so much stuff going on, and I don't reach out to clients. I don't do new business development or anything like that. And it's had to change. And it may just be helping one of our reps or other units. But for me, like, I always have, I call it 4, 4, and 4. So I make sure I make 4 phone calls a day, send out 4 texts, and then send 4 emails that are specifically tied to business development, asking for referrals, or giving referrals. So that's activity points a day. And like, hey, some days I'll do more, but it's easy for me, as someone, like, I can find stuff to do to put in there, but that's become something that I just re-implemented at the beginning of this year, because I'm trying to drive more sales out of our executive search, like retaining business section. It's the area we're trying to grow. And it's the easiest area like, if I can get that type of search, it's easy for us to get recruiting support to that, right? Like, it's already set up. You're not on a contingent order. You're working off a retainer. So.
Yeah, I think you actually like hit the nail on the head for a lot of people, a lot of recruiters. It's so easy to get lost in the business of recruiting that you forget to do some of the basic, the habit of some of the basics to keep the business going day in and day out.
Yep.
So, okay. Curious. I know you talked real quick a little bit earlier about the goal of 3,000 contractors this year. Like, huge growth from, you said, about 1,000. So big shoes to fill. What are Spark Talent and your goals going for the next year, 5 years, and maybe 10 years down the road? Like, where do you see? Where's the trajectory?
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely focused on that 3,000 opportunity, count for this year. We like to call, like, we try and this is still something we work on with our own team, but we try and call everyone team members, whether they be an internal team member or external. Like, that's just something we're passionate about, is trying to treat everyone.
Awesome.
We're all people, right? So it's just something that we're passionate about. And last year, we did just under 2,500 opportunities last year. So we're looking at a decent jump at 500 more this year. I think it's more about the style of those opportunities that we're going after, which is like the additions that we're trying to make. Some of it is more volume based, but for the most part, we're trying to grow our retained search, technical staffing, which would include like
Okay.
product engineering, and then like IT, type positions. And it ties into what we want to do, what's kind of next on the horizon. So in January, we started a niche staffing company that's a subsidiary of Spark Talent. It's called Spark Packaging, and they are specifically niche within the packaging, printing, and converting space. So
Okay.
we're able to take some of the business that we had that, we do all kinds of different industries at Spark Talent. I mean, there's some we don't do, but we are in a lot of different buckets. That's one we were in. But I do some business consulting on the side, specifically for other recruiting people. I've done it for other business owners too. I only like to do 2 or 3 at a time. And I just feel like, I know some stuff about business, but where I can really make an impact on that is within someone's recruiting business. So I'm much more comfortable giving advice there because, I have some other, and I'm learning and going like, I don't like coaching on stuff where I don't feel like I've achieved, right? And within recruiting, that swim lane, I'm very comfortable with that. So within that, it wasn't expected to happen this way, but one of the people that I was coaching and working with was running a boutique packaging, firm. They're experts in that. They sold in the packaging industry for 10 years prior. And they had brought someone else on that had also been involved in that industry for 10 years and was really impressed. I worked with them all last year, impressed with them, felt like we were aligned from a cultural standpoint. And it wasn't by design, but it just came up like through our conversations that, we decided we were going to create a new company and come up with Spark Packaging so they would focus on all that niche business for us. So I wasn't expecting that, to go that way, but, I think what I do know is like our big vision was to have 7 companies. We think that's what we're going to have. Believe that one of those is going to be executive search. And we're already doing a lot of that, but we'd like to break it off into its own company at some point. Same thing with IT. And, a couple other ideas too. I think what you learn about planning is sometimes you fall into stuff. And this is an example of that. Like, if you asked me a year ago, hey, are you going to have a niche packaging recruiting company? I'd say, no, we already like, we just that, like, but it's just happened, right? Like, and, it's just, you get to know people and we were aligned and it just made sense. And we've been able to start to transition some more business to that group. I mean, they do a great job on their own, but they have access now to our operations team, our executive team. And we believe, they're a part of our mission of creating that 3,000, for the year. And ultimately long term, we want to get to 100,000 annually that we're creating. So they're a part of that. I think that's what's on the horizon for us is that we'll continue to add more companies as well as grow those businesses. And, I'm always on the lookout, even though I'm not like actively recruiting or trying to force something at this point. I think just through getting to know people, like we'll either develop the right people organically to run those other companies, or it'll be a situation like that where we get to know someone, we become aligned, and over a period of time, it just makes sense to partner up to get to that, end all be all mission of creating 100,000 opportunities a year. We're going to need a big talented team to do that. So
big team, a lot of leaders.
Big team, a lot of leaders. And, I love this industry because I think you can come from any background and be successful if you want to. And so I'm passionate about growing people within the industry and developing people from the ground up, or, from wherever background they might come from. It's a passion of mine. I'm passionate about growing what I'll call the entrepreneur, which is someone that's kind of like growing with inside a business. And I'm becoming more and more passionate about helping other entrepreneurs grow as well. That's where I started doing some of that consulting, but like, we're looking at doing that within our family of companies, for sure. So it's been fun working with the CEO of that company over the last 3 months. I mean, we're still figuring stuff out. It's the first time we broke off that way, but I'm going to be passionate about continuing down that path where we bring on some other people to run these other companies, or create those people from within our system, and ultimately execute at what I think will be 7 companies. It could be more, it could be less. That's the way I see it. So.
And just think back in 2009 when you were interviewing, or just when you got done interviewing Aerotech, you were like, I'm going to be that CEO one day. And now look at this.
Yeah, it's I don't. The industry's been great to me, and I didn't ever have this like master plan to like. I mean, some of this stuff just it continues to evolve, right? And I mean, I'm learning every day. I make mistakes every day. We have a lot of stuff that we do right. We have just as many things that we do wrong, or we need to do better, right? So it's a constant pursuit of just getting better.
So 2 more questions for you. I know the world has changed a little bit since 2009 when you first started off. What would you tell a brand new recruiter in this space, how to be successful?
I would really focus in on what we talked about earlier on making sure that not that they like rejection, but they understand and embrace that it's a part of becoming better, and that each rejection or failure you have, you have a candidate that gets an offer and you've been working on it. Like let's say you had 5 other people in the mix. You finally get that person, and then, they don't accept, or they accept and they don't show up or whatever. Like, it's hard to do this in the moment, but as those things happen to you, being able to step back and say like, okay, what can I learn from this? How do I get better? What within this process could I control? And there are situations where there's some things you can't control, or where things just don't go your way. But for the most part, and it's hard to do in the thick of it, right? But whether it's with one candidate, a client, if you're running an office, responsible for a whole company, like being able to do that within recruiting is extremely important, because you can almost always find something that you can tweak and get better from. And if you continue to do that, even if you fail a lot, if you're doing that every time, that means you're getting better each time. And eventually, with the right amount of good activity, I'll preface it that way, with the right amount of good activity, you will turn that around and your success will compound. And you'll realize that in recruiting, it might not always feel like it, but if you take that approach, you're ultimately you're in control of if you succeed or not, if you take that approach.
Awesome. And last question I like to ask everybody: what has been, I love going through books. I love reading Audible, all that stuff. What is one book that you've either read recently or read a while ago that's had the biggest impact on your career?
There's a lot, and from listening to episodes, I knew you were going to ask this question. I'm like, man, what am I going to say with this? Like, there's a ton of books. I'm a big reader, but one that I continue to go back to, that I've read multiple times, that I'm probably highlighted almost the whole book. I have the app, so I can go to certain parts of the book, is Principles by Ray Dalio.
Okay. That's a great book.
Enjoyed that book. It's a long book, right? So there's reading it again makes sense, but that book's been very impactful for me, and challenging in that, like it has. I started to already learn this, but that book really hammered it home for me that, like, look, I'm not always right. There's not one way to do things. There's not only one type of personality that can be successful. And that ultimately it's good to have different types of people on your team. It's good to have healthy conflict. And I just learned a lot from that book on that, and continue to learn from it. And whenever I'm, if I'm in a situation where I'm not sure what to do, that's one of the books that I'm going back and trying to figure out, like, what did I read here on this, and like gives me some perspective. So.
Okay. Well, Aaron, thank you for joining us on the Elite Recruiter podcast. Excited to share the story. Excited about the other people listening to you and the impact that it's going to make. Would you like to say any last words to the listeners?
Uh, well, one, thank you again for having me on. I'll continue to listen to the show. I'm a fan of what you're doing and excited to get to know you better. Hopefully, we continue to talk and can form a new friendship here. But I would say if you're in the space, or it doesn't really matter what space you're in, but if you're in the recruiting space, focus on doing things that are going to push your business forward and compound your effort. So understand that one day doesn't define your career. But if you stack good day after good day after good day, really good things are going to happen. And within that, it's okay if you fail. It's gonna happen, and you can learn from it. So that would be my advice for anyone in recruiting. And you can kind of take that to any level of where you're at within a recruiter's career, or if you're working at it, like if you're in any role within a recruiting company, that can apply in some way, shape, or form. So that's it.
Awesome. Well, Aaron, thank you for joining us. I look forward to speaking with you again. This has been awesome.
Yeah, Ben. Thank you. Have a good day.